Hello and welcome to another short drawing lesson. This week we're going to try and draw the Mercedes 300 SL, the gull-wing. So the first thing we'll do is a front wheel over this side. And then the next wheel will be 1, 2 and a little bit further wheels further back. See, I'm trying to draw lightly at this early stage because we'll firm things up later on. We might need to make some changes. Next we need a horizontal line going through the centres of those wheels. And then the bottom of the car will be halfway between that and the ground, parallel to it. There's the bottom. The rear of the car, which would be this end, the very tip of the tail, is going to be one more wheel further back. So that'll give you the tail there, so on that line. The front of the car is a smaller overhang, so half a wheel sticking out in front. You can do a small line there if you like. Next, for the tops of the arches, if you add a quarter of a wheel on top of the front and add a very slightly curving line over that wheel, and we'll do the same at the back but ever so slightly higher so that it's a tiny bit more bulgy than the front one, but a shorter one, because it needs to then, after it's gone back a little bit, drop down to meet that point there, so quite tricky. Try to get a nice swing of your wrist or arm. And then we've got a sort of straight section between them that joins them. The front one, once it's dipped down a bit, will then meet where the headlight goes. It's going to be there. For the bottom edge at each end of the car, just go ever so slightly higher up than where this line meets the tyre. And just bring a slightly rounded sloping line up. Same at the back here, a little bit higher than that. Take it back, coming upwards slightly and then rounding into that nice round tail. Next we need to do the canopy. That's probably the trickiest part of this one. So just a little bit ahead of the back wheel, come up, and that's going to be where the B pillar is, so a slightly sloping line there for that. The A pillar starts about one wheel further back at this one wheel mark, come up to there, and a bit more of a slope on that one, maybe like that. And then your side window should have these kinds of proportions, quite long and thin. And there's a smaller window in there which will have the same angle as that. Now the windscreen, add a bit of thickness to that A pillar, and then add the glass for the windscreen. So not too much of a curve there. Curve the bottom edge of it, and that way you'll be able to add a bit of thickness to the bonnet, because that again will curve as it goes over the top of the bonnet. At the side here we need a bit of thickness to that pillar, and then there's a small window here which kind of drops down like this. And then the roof, we need to come just a little bit further back than this back edge of the back wheel. It's a bit back here. That's going to be where the roof stops. So add some thickness to the roof and then make it drop down to meet that. And you can add a bit of thickness to your tail as well, because that's, I'm going to extend it even further actually. Maybe my roof came down a bit too late. And then the rear window is also visible. So a bit of thickness to that pillar, C pillar. And the rear window will kind of follow this swing around. That's probably the hardest part. You can see I struggled a bit. I think we'll make it work all right. So now the door openings, the famous gull wings, they wrap over the roof. So they're kind of vertical at that part. Then they come down here, and that line extends slightly and rounds off, and then goes horizontal just about here somewhere, and then rounds off to meet this line. halfway along there's a little door handle. And then some very important details that we nearly forgot are these sort of streamlined shapes that go across the wheels. So you can chop the tops of the wheels off with one of these kind of slug shapes, aerodynamic whizzy things. And there's one at the front as well, a much longer one. So they're quite iconic for that part of the design. I'm just going to raise that bottom edge of the window slightly. Just looked a bit low. And at this point I think we can start to make it look three-dimensional by adding the ground. That would be a good thing to have. Show the wheels on the far side of the car. And darken the underside. So this is the stage where you can start to press a bit harder. Darken the shadow on the floor. And we'll put the bumpers on, they're quite important. So the top edge of the bumpers sits on this line that we had going between the wheels at the beginning. And they just sort of rounded rectangles. And they have quite distinctive crescent-shaped overriders. The same at this end, rounded rectangle. And again, there's crescent shapes. So if your headlight isn't there yet, put that in, just on there. I like to put a little dot halfway up. It looks a bit like the reflection on the chrome. Same with the bumpers and things. You can usually see a horizon quite clearly on the curved chrome sections. There's a wing mirror actually on the wing for a change. There. Ooh. And windscreen wipers. And up here we'll be able to see up into the roof slightly and the pillars on the far side of the car. Just like you can with the wheels on the far side of the car. You can see the same when you look inside the cockpit. And the wheel arches are quite important. We need to sort of add those because they're fairly square shapes. They sort of start round and then square off slightly. And you can just add a little bit of shading under those top bits because the wheels are quite set in. Another important part in here, we've got a trapezoid shaped vent with some strakes going across the top, two of those, and you can darken in between those. And I think that's pretty much it. Quite a tricky one after all. It doesn't look a complicated shape, but once you start looking at all the details and all those little curves fit together, it does get a bit complicated. I hope yours worked out okay. Let me know in the comments how you got on, and if there's a particular car you'd like me to try next. Otherwise, have a great week, like and subscribe and all that stuff, and I'll see you for another one soon.